Hello, this is Catherine. I am Woolly Faye, and today's tutorial is going to cover the basics of Mosaic Crochet. Today you're going to need 2 colors of worsted weight yarn and an appropriately sized hook. You're also going to need a pair of clippers. The first thing we're going to look at today is how to read the graph. Now I've just hand drawn this one. They're usually on a computer printout or a PDF. Done with a program. It all looks professional, so I do apologize that I've just kind of scribbled this one out here, but it will suffice in showing you how to read it. You're going to find that at the bottom you're going to have numbers that indicate your stitch or your column. In this case I'm using one with 23 stitches. In some projects you could have 200 or 300 stitches depending on what you're making, but we're going to stop there today. We're not going to make it too long. On the margins, you're going to find that you have letters and numbers. The letters are going to indicate the yarn color, okay? In this case, we're using 2 colors, so it's just going to be A, B, A, B, A. And I have determined that my color A is going to be teal, okay? So I'm going to be using teal for this, and I'm going to be using sage for my B. So I've made that decision, and I'll know which color to use based on these letters. These are the rows that I'm working. So when I'm finished working a row, I can come along and mark them off. Or if I'm using a PDF, I can just keep track that way. You can even take a pad and just mark it down if you want. Now, one thing that you're going to find in your graph is that it either has blank squares or it has X's. In this case, we cannot get this shape without doing what you call a dip down double crochet. So you would come along with your color B, which is going to be my sage or whatever color you're using, and you would just single crochet all the way across. And then you would come along with your color A, and you would just single crochet that color all the way across. Now you're looking at it, you're thinking, wait, but there's 2 colors there. Well, this is where the row 4 starts to come into play on these squares. There will be X's in the boxes on your graph, okay? And those X's will tell you to dip down double crochet. So all the way across on these squares, there will be X's. If you were to look at this pattern in a properly generated graph, you would see that every one of these has an X in it, and we're doing a dip down double crochet, which means that we go back to the previous same color. We're skipping a row. So this color A, we don't do anything different. It's blank. And if it's blank, you single crochet. You act like there's no color change. You just single crochet across. Then you come up to row 4, and all of a sudden you dip down into the front loop only of the row 2. And that'll be the exact same color that you're working. So what happens is this gets covered. So you've worked your A all the way across, but then when you do your dip down, it covers it so that you have this square. The same with this. On the first row, we are doing color A all the way across, as you can see. We get to second row, we do color B all the way across. And then we get to the 3rd row and we do a dip down double crochet, and that lets us to maintain that color path. And so we're dipping into 1. And then on 5, we do color B across here, and then 5, we dip down again. So all the way across, we will be doing this. We'll be dipping down to create these bars, and that will be indicated with an X. If there is no X in the box, it's a single crochet into the back loop only. There are only 2 times in Mosaic Crochet when you don't work into the back loop only, and that is when you're adding your yarn and when you fasten off. These stitches would be done under both loops for the sake of making sure that stitch is secure, adding and fastening off. Everything else will be done into the back loop only. So when you see that, and just make sure you know, that would be a back loop single crochet that you would be working. For the dip down, you always work into the front loop only. You'll see that. Now that's going to be called a dip down double crochet. Okay, a dip down double crochet. So you've got your single crochets into the back loop. They're always worked toward the top of the previous row as usual. And then the dip downs always work 2 rows down into the same color front loop. Okay, now if your pattern written instructions say double crochet, do know that it means a dip down double crochet. So sometimes people don't put dip down double, sometimes they put double crochet. Just know that because it's a mosaic crochet pattern that you're going to be dipping down into that row. So let's just kind of get started here and make some sense of all this. I want you to chain 24, and then when you've done that, all you need to do is just pause your video, and then you can hit play when you're ready to resume. So it's real easy to stop and catch up anytime you need to. And you're going to actually chain 24 because we're going to be losing a stitch. Now, alternatively, if you want to do a single crochet foundation row, you're welcome to do that. Do 23 stitches because ultimately we're going to be wanting to end up with 23 stitches. But if you want to chain, then what you need to do, excuse me for the noise, is you need to chain 24, and then you're going to find the back bump on the back of your chain. And when I say that, for those of you who are not sure what I'm talking about, that's going to be a flat side of your chain. And on the back side of your chain, you're going to see this little ridge. It's going to be your back bump. It is equivalent to your back loop, okay? This is going to be your back bump. So you've got this back bump actually that is right next to the loop. This one has kind of been consumed in it. As you can see, if I kind of pull it back, you can see it. We skipped that one. That's how we end up losing a chain. And so we skip that, and we're going to go straight to the first standalone back loop. It will not be attached to this. It will be second from your hook. Sometimes it's even hard to see that first one. But it will actually be the second one, whether you see it or not. It'll be your first standalone back loop, and it's going to be second from your hook, and you're going to slide your hook underneath that loop, and you're going to yarn over and pull up another loop and complete a single crochet. So all the way down, that's what I want you to do. Slide your hook up under the back bump. You should end up with 23 single crochet stitches worked under the back bump. And when you're done, just hit pause, take your time, make sure it's right, and then hit play when you're ready to resume. Okay, hopefully you have 23 single crochets on your first foundation row. And then when you get to the end, of course, we are going to fasten off. This will be considered your first row. So this will actually be this row right here. And as you can see, with no X's in the boxes, it would just been single crochet all the way across. The same is going to hold true here. I realized that what I've done is to show the dip down double crochet. I've made some marks in there, but they're not X's. Anytime that it's a blank box and that mark I put on there on purpose just to demonstrate how we dip down. So, but it was originally blank, and so those are also going to be nothing but single crochet all the way across. It doesn't matter if this is a color change, and that'll make sense to you in just a moment. So in order to fasten off, what you need to do after you've finished your single crochet is to just chain 2, 1, 2, and then you want to take your clippers and just cut it off. Give yourself a little bit of a tail. This will create a fringe on your work. You're just going to slide your hook up until that pulls loose, and then just take and slide it down. And that should actually form a pretty solid knot. So you want to be sure when you're working your design that you don't accidentally make a mistake, because you're not going to be able to pull that back with much ease. You're going to end up having to do it over. That's a really secure knot, and you want them secure. You don't want your work pulling out, but it does mean that you have to make sure that you check your row before you stop. And the designs should be consistent all the way across, so you shouldn't have any trouble seeing if you've made a mistake that you need to redo. When you add your new yarn, what you want to do then is to come over to the first full stitch on the right hand side. You do not want to turn your work. We do not turn our work in Mosaic Crochet. We add our yarn on the right and we fasten off on the left. So you're going to come over and stick your hook up under both loops. Remember that I told you that the exception was that we do both loops to add the yarn and to fasten off. Otherwise, we work only into the back loop. And when I say the back loop, just remember that each stitch has 2 loops on it, and you will be the one facing you is your front loop, and the one behind it is the back loop. So we're going to be working into this back loop and leaving these front loops exposed. But to start, you always kind of want to go under the first full stitch on the right hand side. There'll be 2 loops there to indicate it's a full stitch, and then you want to add your second color. According to our graph here, we are actually, I'll just use my highlighter here. According to my graph here, we've done color A when we added to the back loop, the back bump. So we've completed that one. We're on the second row now. I've got some kind of a thing, pesky little fly, sorry. There we go. We're on our second row now, and we're going to be working color B. All right, so that's going to be my sage, as we kind of talked about before. And so that's going to be single crochet. So we add that by just pull that yarn through that stitch. I got a little distracted there, I'm sorry. And now we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to insert the hook back under both loops of that same stitch, the first stitch, and we're going to pull up a second loop, and then we're going to complete a single crochet stitch. Now we're going to single crochet into the back loop all the way across. So that's 1, 2, 3, and we're doing the back loop only. And as you can see, we have left this front loop exposed right here. Okay, so we're working into the back loop of the teal with the sage, and there is, let's see if I can do this without causing any damage. There's a loop right there. That's your front loop that you didn't touch. Okay, I'm going to do that all the way across. And you can just hit pause and hit play when you're ready to resume, and we'll pick up from there. Okay, so I have done all of my single crochet stitches all the way across, and I'm going in now, and I kind of go into the side of mine because I like the way it looks better. It's actually the same stitch, and we're going under both loops. In order to fasten off, we have to complete a single crochet stitch first, so you can actually go into the top of this as you know, normal under both loops. I have a tendency to kind of work that sideways on the side loops there, and just go ahead, complete a single crochet and chain 2. You can do it however you choose. I just find that the edges are a lot straighter when you do that. And so you can determine how you want to come at that yourself. You may not like the way that works, but I prefer it. So then the next row that we're going to do is row 3. We've completed 2, and we're doing 3, and we're back to color A. On this row, we now start encountering these X's. I'm circling in there so you can see what I'm talking about. So actually there's no X's in these boxes. I've just, of course, made those lines when I was showing you how they dip down. So those are going to be single crochets. So there'll be single crochet here on each of these, and that will not actually show up in your graph that way. It'll just be a blank box. You'll have single crochets in all of these. Okay, and only where the X's are will we dip down double crochet. Okay, so this will be our first stitch. We've already done it, and we haven't done it. We're getting ready to do it. That'll be our teal, and then we'll do a dip down double crochet, and then we'll have 3 single crochet and a dip down double crochet. So let me just go ahead and show you that. We're going to go under the first full stitch. That'll be 2 loops on it. We don't go into this side loop here. It is tempting sometimes for some people to go ahead and try to work into this little loop here. As you'll begin to see as we go, that'll actually look really nice on its own. You don't need to touch that. You want to actually be sure you're working under a full stitch. So you're going to add your color A, and you're going to pull through chain 1, go back into the same stitch, pull through again. That's going to be 2 loops on your hook. You're going to complete a single crochet stitch. So now you're going to take a look at your graph, and of course that's just single crochet, but we just did that adding it. That's where we added our new yarn. Okay, so now we're going to do a dip down double crochet, and in order to do that, we're going to find the next stitch right here, and we are actually going to move down to the previous color. So we're working row 3. This is row 2, color B, and this is row 1. We are actually going to dip down into row 1 and pick up that loop with the corresponding stitch. So we're just going to come straight down and grab that front loop. If we hadn't worked into the back loop, there would be no front loop. So that's why it's so important. So you just wrap like you would with a double crochet. You slide your hook up under that front loop. You draw it back through, and of course you complete a double crochet stitch. Don't pull on it too hard. Don't make it too tight. You want to be sure, you don't want it loose and sloppy, but it'll relax on its own as you go. Don't worry about that. But if you get it too tight, it won't. It'll pull permanently. So you just kind of want to make sure that tension's not too tight on that. Then the next thing we want to do is have 3 single crochet stitches. So we go 1, 2, 3. Whoop, that did. Well, let's just redo it. There we go. And then the next stitch, we have a dip down double crochet that is indicated by an X. Okay. It's really easy to get off some of those graphs if you don't mark them. I usually use a highlighter, but I'm just trying to show you where I'm at and what I'm reading. So we're going to do a dip down double crochet. Again, we'll just kind of look at this. I'm going to pull this one up just a little closer to you so you can see. We have our stitch right here that we're going to be working into. All right, we just slide down and we get the stitch underneath it. Remember, this is row 1, row 2, row 3 that we're working, and we're going to skip over row 2 and go to row 1 because it is the same color. That's why we are dipping down. So it's a regular double crochet, but we're dipping down. So let's just go ahead and do that. We wrap, we slide up under that front loop, and then we just complete a double crochet stitch. Now we're going to 3 single crochet into the back loop, and we're going to complete that all the way down. We're just going to continue to follow that sequence. 3 single crochet into the back loop, and then 1 double dip down double crochet into the front loop, and then 3 more single crochet. So we're just going to complete that all the way down. Just real quick, gonna move along as quickly as we can on this. So there's 3, and then we're going to dip down with a double crochet. Okay, then 3, and then dip down with a double crochet. And that pattern just repeats all the way down. Just keep repeating the same sequence all the way down 3, and then our last dip down double crochet goes into the side here. Okay, and then of course we want to fasten off, but we have to do a single crochet into the last stitch. It's very easy to just go up under here and do that. I don't like it because it tends to pull this direction. To keep it from pulling that direction, I have a tendency to just kind of work my hook. It's a little more trouble, but I like the way it looks so much better, so I'll just kind of work it in through the side. And it's the same stitch, you're just coming at it from a different angle. And then I'll complete that single crochet, and then of course chain 2, clip the yarn, slide the hook up, and then slide that down until it forms a really sturdy knot. Now we're going to go to row 4. As you can see, we've worked 3 rows. We have our foundation row. We have our second row right here, which was color B. We have our third row, which again was color A. And on our fourth row, we're going back to color B. Okay, so of course, we add our yarn the same way every time, and it is always ends with a single crochet. So we pull up a loop, chain 1, return to the same stitch, and pull up another loop and complete a single crochet. I did that very quickly because we've already covered it several times. Okay, so now on this, of course, as you can see, there is no X here. There's a line where I've kind of showed you how it dips down, no X. And then as you can see, we have a single crochet here because it's a blank, it's no X, so it would be blank. And then we've got 3 dip down double crochets, a single crochet, 3 dip down double crochets, a single crochet, 3 dip down double crochets, and so forth all the way across. So let's go ahead and do that. We go into the back loop only, we pull up, do a single crochet, and then we're going to do 3 dip down double crochets into these 3 loops. So let's just go ahead, 1, and sometimes I kind of have to pry that up like this. Okay, let's do that again in case I got over too far. Sometimes I have to pry that like that, all right, and just get it in there. Sometimes they can kind of want to bury in. All right, so wrap, and we're just doing a double crochet under the front loop. Okay, and again. All right. And then of course it's 1 and 3. Do this again, and then we do a single crochet into that back loop. Let me go ahead and get myself some excess yarn, because we're going to double crochet under the front loop. There we go, dip down double crochet 3 times. There we go. And then we're going to single crochet into the back loop. And that sequence just continues the same way all the way across the row. Now when you're doing mosaic crochet, the patterns do vary, and the designs that you're working, of course, you've got different kinds of graphics. It may switch up a bit. What you want to do is be sure you're looking at your graph and reading your written instructions to follow those. It won't always be, you know, a consistent sequence, but in this case it is. And so we're just going to continue to the end. Okay. Go. And then back loop. And then 3 more dip down double crochets to end. All right. This will be our last set of 3. Okay, and then we're going to go into the back loop only again to finish that last one, and that is what you're going to see right here on row 4. See, there is no X in it, so our last 2 stitches are going to be single crochet just like our first 2 were, only we're going to be fastening off on this very last one. Again, you can do your single crochet stitch into the top. I don't like to, because we single crochet right before we fasten off, and I like the angle to be where it actually stays in a straight line. For me personally, that works better. I know I've said that several times, but I just want to reiterate that my way is not necessarily the way you have to do it, but I do want to kind of promote that as a solution to what I see as a common problem. So there we go, see, into the side instead of the top, and see how straight that is. So now we are going to do the last row that we're going to do in this tutorial will be row 5, and that's going to be color A. Now color A starts with a single crochet, which is where we add our yarn in. So we're going to add the yarn there by doing this. Again, pull up a loop, chain 1, insert the hook back into the same stitch, pull up another loop, there's 2 there, and complete a single crochet stitch. Now we're going to dip down, double crochet into the next stitch, then we're going to do 3 single crochet, 1 dip down, 3 single, 1 dip down, 3 single. So that sequence is going to continue all the way across. So let's begin with that. Dip down, double crochet into the next stitch. Remember not to get them too tight, and then we're going to single crochet into the back loop only all the way across. Okay. And then dip down, double crochet into the next stitch. 3 back loop, single crochet. I said all the way across before, but it actually meant the next 3, so sometimes my brain and my mouth don't work together the way they should. I don't know why. I sometimes just kind of go off with the fairies, I guess. There we go. We've got 3 back loop single crochets, and then we have a dip down, double crochet into the next stitch, and then 3 back loop single crochets. Go, a dip down, double crochet, 3 back loop single crochets, and then a dip down, double crochet, and then our last stitch is going to be a single crochet stitch, and this is where we fasten off. And again, you can go into the top, but I go into the side. I do recommend that. There we go. And then we chain 2. We clip our yarn, pull our hook straight up. Okay. We cinch it down. Clumsy. And as you can see, we have formed little squares with our mosaic crochet. Now, there are all kinds of really cool things you can do with this, all different designs, you know, Greek keys and full graphics. But this is the technique that you will use. You will just follow your graph, and when you double crochet, you dip down, and when you single crochet, you go into the back loop only. You can see how easy it is, and as long as you know how to read your graph and understand what the instructions are telling you to do, easy as can be. Just the basic stitches to create some of the most beautiful pieces. So anyway, I hope you will like and share my channel, and be sure and subscribe, and we'll see you the next time.